right. We will resume the meeting. We're going to move on to information reports, item 3.1, or excuse me, 3.2, Foundation for California Community Colleges, fiscal sponsorships, partnering with success. Keitha?
Great. Thank you, President Baca, members of the board. Before I begin the presentation on fiscal sponsorships, I would like to introduce Foundation for California Community Colleges Board Chair Patty Sullivan, who is with me here today, and ask Patty if she would maybe make a few opening remarks.
Absolutely. Thank you, Keitha. Thank you very much. Thank you for having us here, President Baca and Vice President Baum. And Deputy Chancellor Skinner, thank you for being here, and members of the board, as well as members of the Chancellor Office staff. As I mentioned last time I was here, we are in the midst of a strategic planning process, and we are getting closer. We're very excited to report that next week we will be having our Board of Governors, or our Board of Directors meeting for the foundation and taking the next step in discussions around the strategic plan for our next 5-year plan that will take us from 2015 to 2020. We have had a significant amount of involvement in discussions and understanding the priorities and activities of the Chancellor's Office, the system, and as we have aligned and identified our priorities, I think that we have looked to your organization, the System Office, to help to prioritize, to determine our focus areas. And so at this point, we are looking to report back to you in July with our strategic plan, and we'll be able to give you a more concrete view of that. But our focus there are in four primary areas, one being the students themselves. And it was wonderful to see the leaders of the 3 higher education systems as the previous speakers here, and really understanding that the priority is for the students, and the health of the students and the success of the students will lead to the success of the state. So that is number one, then the colleges, then the Chancellor's Office, and the system as a whole. So we are very much excited about that plan, and really a revamping and a re-energizing of that. The second thing that I just wanted to mention to you is that in approximately 1 week, there will be a public announcement of an award, a $500,000 award from the Kresge Foundation to the California Community Colleges. And this is, I think, really a momentous occasion, not only because it's a significant grant, and the focus of that grant is on student success and furthering the student success task force and initiatives. But also it is momentous in that it brought together the kind of collaboration that we need to see. And again, listening to the previous speakers, it's really in the collaboration of these different organizations that we're going to be successful in furthering our goals as a state. And in applying for this grant, there was a very strong collaboration with the Chancellor's Office, with the staff led by Deputy Chancellor Skinner and Vice Chancellor Patrick Perry, as well as 3 other organizations, the League for California Community Colleges, led by Scott Lay, the Academic Senate, led by Beth Smith, and also the RP group, the research group that is led by Mike Howe. And in coming together and presenting the proposal to the Kresge Foundation, the state was one of 3 states that were awarded a grant to help to further student success in the creation of a center, the Student Success Center, that will help to further the goals, both the academic and the career goals of the students of the community college system. So we're very excited about that. And again, in about a week, you'll see the public announcement of it as well. But I just want to say a thank you to the Chancellor's Office staff in particular for working with the foundation in completing this successful grant proposal and grant. And then I'm going to turn it back over to Keitha.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Patty. Another collaboration I'd like to highlight before we get into the more formal presentation is a growing collaboration with the Chancellor's Office Workforce Development Division under the leadership of Vice Chancellor Vonton Quinlivan. And I really appreciated the leadership of Vice Chancellor Quinlivan in thinking through how to you've heard her talk about how she's braiding, the various funding streams that come through the California community colleges from a workforce development perspective. And I've really appreciated the way that Vaughn has even expanded beyond that to think about how do I also weave in the philanthropic dollars that are coming into the system. And it's been a great partnership. We are currently a technical service provider for the Doing What Matters for Jobs in the Economy framework, and really excited about one of the grants that was approved just this morning under the consent calendar, where we will be working very collaboratively with the Los Rios Community College District to leverage the funding that's coming in through JP Morgan Chase Global Philanthropy to work with Los Rios to do a fairly sophisticated pilot program here in Sacramento that will then work to build out a more robust statewide infrastructure focused primarily on providing more work-based learning internship opportunities for our California community college students. So there's a lot of collaboration that continues to happen between the foundation and the Chancellor's Office, and it's really exciting to see that work move forward both through state dollars and partnered with philanthropy. So at this point, I'd like to talk to you guys a little bit about our fiscal sponsorship services, and I'm going to speak from this PowerPoint that I believe Clarissa has just passed out in front of you. And there are two reasons that I wanted to touch on this topic with you today. I think first, I think it's important that we continue to increase the awareness of the variety of different programs and services that the foundation is able to offer. But I think also this particular service has really over the last year to 18 months worked to help us further our reach and further our impact as it relates to supporting the Student Success Initiative. And I'll talk a little bit about the particular services that we provide and then highlight a couple of our most recent partnerships that are doing a lot of great work out in the system around student success. So when I talk about fiscal sponsorships, this is a service that the foundation has provided almost since inception. So we've been doing this type of work since the year 2000. And when we talk about fiscal sponsorships, I think at the most basic level, it's basically when a program or a separately organized entity partners with an existing 501c3 with a compatible mission, and they partner to help improve the effectiveness of their back office support services and also to expand fundraising capabilities for their program or the work that they're doing. And the benefits of this type of partnership are really to allow program leadership to focus on what they do best, which is delivering the results of their program rather than the accounting and the HR and the back office support. So it allows the programmatic experts to really do what they do best and not to have to worry about how do I make sure that all of the technical stuff is being done. By partnering with the foundation, it really gives our partners access to both quality and a full suite of services. Because we are the size that we are, we have fairly robust back office services, and it really creates kind of economies of scale for these maybe smaller programs. If you think about even at $1 million, if you have a program that's running that's bringing in $1 million of revenues, trying to run your program and also hire a CFO and hire an HR expert and hire an IT expert, there's really not enough funding there to create a robust back office in an economical way. Another kind of benefit of partnering with the foundation is that because we are so closely affiliated with the Chancellor's Office and the Board of Governors, it gives our partners increased collaboration with the system and helps ensure that what's happening out there in the field stays aligned with what's happening at the statewide level. This also gives our partners, because we're a 501c3, the ability to solicit tax-deductible contributions and grants. And we have some partners where they may not have their own 501c3 status, and maybe they're receiving some sort of public funds and they want to expand by bringing in philanthropy, and we will act as their 501c3 to bring in philanthropic dollars. We have other partners that are already established as a 501c3, so they organized, incorporated, got their 501c3 status, and then decided, you know what, I really want to focus on my program versus the back office. So even though I have my own 501c3, I'm going to partner with the foundation so I can leverage their robust back office support to solicit more philanthropic dollars. And it's become so competitive out there in philanthropy that a lot of the funders are really looking at, not only are you out there doing good work for a good cause, but can you manage the money in a fiscally prudent manner? And that's where the foundation can come in and help kind of make that argument a bit more solid. So when we talk about the types of services that we offer for our fiscally sponsored projects, I've talked a little bit about accounting and financial reporting. It's basically full service financial management. We offer HR, everything from recruiting to we actually payroll some of our partners' employees as well. So, and there's a hybrid of sometimes they come on as our employees, sometimes they're district employees, and we can customize to meet the needs of our partners. We'll provide information technology support, some marketing and communication, risk management. Do they have the right insurance coverage? Are their contracts really covering their projects for the risks that might be out there related to the work that they're doing? And of course, fundraising and grant management support. And the great thing about our work and our structure is that we're very nimble in that we can structure a service to meet the unique needs of whatever the program is. So we'll offer a menu of services, sit down and negotiate with our partners about what do you really need and what would be most helpful for you, and we put together kind of a suite of services that meet each of our individual partners' needs. When we evaluate partners for potential onboarding, we look at a number of characteristics. And I think first and foremost is that when we're looking for partners that are really aligned with the system and the system priorities. And also we want to ensure that they're aligned with the mission and the primary goals of the foundation. So we're looking for partners that are a good fit with the foundation and that will help us sort of build our strengths as well as help further the cause of the particular program. We do also look for kind of the financial footing and sustainability and really the potential for the programs that we partner with. A lot of the programs are smaller and may not have kind of really solid financial footing, or they may not be talking to us, but we really evaluate, is there potential for growth? Is there potential for partnership? And is there potential for collaboration to make both organizations stronger? And many a times the projects that we onboard are very closely affiliated either with the chancellor's office or a district or college throughout the state. So this next slide just illustrates the number of projects that we've worked with over the years, and so this is clearly a long-standing and growing service that the foundation has offered. And you'll notice we put some of the dates here on the slide, and what you'll notice about that is that we have some programs that have been with us since 2000 and that we still work with. We have other projects that are shorter-term projects that maybe there's a grant that's coming in that a particular project needs more robust service related to a particular grant, but maybe not the entire program. And so, again, that's what's great about our nimble back office infrastructure, that we can help with parts and pieces of what a project may need, even if they don't need the kind of the full suite of services. I'm going to take a moment to highlight a couple of our longstanding and newest partnerships. Many of you have probably heard of the Career Ladders Project. We've been partnered with Career Ladders under the leadership of Linda Collins, who's the executive director of the project, and we've been partnered with Linda Collins since 2003. This is a great partnership for the foundation because this project focuses on workforce development in the community colleges, and the program goals related to the Career Letters Project is around enhancing workforce and economic development and increasing the number of skilled workers that come out of our college. This project is particularly focused on low-income students and providing those students, every student, with an opportunity to attain jobs that provide a living wage. So again, this is a great partnership for the foundation, and that the foundation currently provides student internships. We're very closely aligned with the work that's happening in the Doing What Matters for Jobs in the Economy, and this is another way for us to kind of expand the reach of that work through partners that are out in the field. The Umoja community has been a partner since 2008. This particular project focuses on African American students, at-risk and economically disadvantaged students, with a focus on student success. How do we help more students become successful in their college endeavors? They focus on things that sound very familiar to all of us, things that were of high focus in the Student Success Initiative, ensuring these students have access to college orientation, that they're getting assistance with their college assessments, that they're getting counseling, that they're developing ed plans early on. So again, some of the same themes around student success. This particular project is focused on a very distinct population within our California community colleges. Two of our newer partnerships, I have to say another thank you to Vice Chancellor Patrick Perry for making the introductions on these two newer partnerships. One is CalPass Plus, which again is created through leadership and funding from the Chancellor's Office. This project is another one that not only gets state funding, but is also looking for philanthropic monies as well, and that's where we get involved. The CalPass Plus project is focused on data alignment and helping students improve their transitions through their education pipeline. The RP group is the research and planning group that you heard Patty mention earlier. They're also a significant partner in the Student Success Center. We've just recently partnered with the RP group to provide more management services agreement. This is another example of an entity where the RP group has their separate 501c3, and under their new leadership of Executive Director Mike Howell, they've decided, you know what, we want to focus our energy on providing the programmatic piece of the work that we do, and we think it's better to partner with the foundation to do the back office support. So this was one that we worked really closely with Mike Howell and his board to develop specific services that really met the needs of the RP group so that they can focus on their primary mission. One of our most recent partners is the California College Guidance Initiative. And I have to thank Eric Skinner, Deputy Chancellor Eric Skinner, for making this introduction. This is a great partner in that they are also very involved in both student success and technology implementation efforts. And this is very timely, listening to the panel that just preceded us, and that this particular project collaborates with all three of the higher education partners. So this project brings together the California Community Colleges, the CSU, and the UC, and even reaches back to K-12. Again, data alignment, trying to use as much K-12 transcript data to talk across the sectors so that our students can come in and be successful throughout their educational pipeline. So this project is really focused on empowering students and their families to take control of their educational paths and providing a continuum of support starting in K-12 all the way through their college career. So through the 4 or 5 that I just highlighted, you can see a lot of common threads coming through in both workforce development and student success. And so it's we're broadening the family and broadening the reach of the work that's happening statewide. Again, this is a growing service for us. It's something that we look to for the future as a kind of an outlook for growth, and the way that we typically learn about these types of projects that need this type of support are through referrals. So you heard me mention Patrick Perry, Deputy Chancellor Eric Skinner. These are the ways that people find us, is that when you're out in the community or at your community colleges and you may see a project that, wow, they're looking to grow or looking for to get into philanthropy and garner more support. We'd love to know about those. We'd love for you guys to help make even more introductions as you're out and about. This last slide is just a snapshot of our webpage that has resource information. And of course, I'm always available for introductions. So thank you. That concludes our presentation.
Thank you both very much for the presentation, and great news on that Kresge grant. I think that'll come go towards good use, and as well as the internships with Vice Chancellor Ton Quinlivan. I think this is an area where you had an ebb and flow, maybe mostly a flow away in terms of the internships, but they're so critically important, and if we can expand those out, it's a great opportunity for mentoring, for job experience. So anything that we can do to enhance our ability to provide additional internships to students is just really worth the money that's spent on it.
Yeah, agreed.
Members, any questions? Member Belansky? Or member?
Thank you for your presentation again. Thank you. Just a question on the California College Guidance Initiative, because of trying to determine from the analysis piece we were sent ahead of time. Is this only at certain areas, colleges, and when would it become statewide?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it is currently only at select colleges, and there are pilots that are happening in select areas. I think the ultimate vision of the executive director over that program is to continue to learn from the pilots and expand it statewide. I don't know that there's a specific timeline on that, but the plan is to continue to raise philanthropic dollars to grow the program and continue to expand.
So if a particular college and high school said, we'd like to get involved and be a partner, what would they do?
Well, so I would recommend that if there is a specific college that wanted to be involved, probably the best thing to do is to put them in contact with me, and then I could facilitate a conversation with the executive director of the program.
Okay. And the other piece, and I'm just curious if there's some strategy with it, is the issue of the high school transcripts and how to get at those easily. Is there anything new on that, or?
Yeah, so that question is probably beyond my expertise to be able to answer. Yeah.
Thank you.
You bet.
Member Sumi?
Well, first of all, I want to thank Chair Sullivan and President Mills for excellent reports as usual. Just curious about a couple of the partners. One, the Moja project that you mentioned, and the Moja project folks have done presentations to our board several times, and very impressive, a program, and I think it's one of the great programs in the system. I'm just curious, what kinds of services you're actually providing them in the partnership, and maybe how they came to you in the first place, and also, too, I noticed, too, that the California High School exit exam is one of your partners, which I think is interesting, and how that partnership is working out.
Yeah. So the Emoja community has been with us for a really long time, and was actually before my time. So I don't know that I know how they found us, but my hunch is that it was likely an introduction from someone along this panel on the back wall. Likely heard about them, found out that they needed some help, and kind of fostered that partnership. We provide all of their back office accounting, and reporting. The Emoja community currently, their primary revenue stream is fees. So they have membership fees and conference fees that they bring in. They are very interested in raising philanthropic dollars. So we've also been very involved with their leadership in trying to develop a case for support and identify philanthropic funders who are interested in that type of work. So we've been working really closely with them in that as well. Member Zumi, I think the other one that you mentioned, the exit exam, was a shorter term project that happened over kind of a distinct period of time. So, and I'm just refreshing my memory. So I believe that one was another philanthropic grant that came in for a specific project that needed a home and was introduced to the foundation as would we be a fiscal sponsor for this particular project for this grant. So I believe that one was, again, a collaboration with the Chancellor's office for a discrete project where we were able to come in, do the grant management, all the back office support for the philanthropy, while the programmatic work kind of happened outside of the foundation with our partners.
Well, thank you very much.
You bet.
Vice President Bach.
Thanks for the presentation. I'm familiar with the concept because at USC I'm on a grant committee and that serves a lot of local nonprofits, but a lot of them are very small and they don't have the capacity and they need a fiscal agent, and so we've found a local agency to do a fiscal agent. I should probably put some in touch with you because some of them are focused on college-bound initiatives.
That would be fantastic. Thank you.
Too. What's your typical overhead charge to a grant that is required for your participation in it as a fiscal agent?
Sure. So our typical overhead charge ranges between 10 and 15%, and it's 10 to 15% of total expenses.
Mm-hmm.
So money can come in, and it comes in without a charge. It's as the money is expended that the fee is assessed, and each relationship is negotiated, based on the needs of the particular partner, and then the fee is determined based on the type and level of service that is needed by the particular partner.
So it's not a set 15% fee for that. It could range based on the specific grant.
It does, and on average, it's 10 to 15%, and on average, it comes in about 12%.
Right. And then what's the average? What kind of revenue is the foundation drawing from this in total for this part of its operation?
So our largest fiscal sponsor partner, which is the Career Ladders Project, is probably bringing in about $4 million of gross revenue a year. That, again, the bulk of that is being subgranted out to the community colleges for various programmatic work. The smallest one is probably couple of $100,000 of support that's coming in for programs that support the colleges. In total, it's probably $8 to $10 million when you add them all together, all of the various partners that we're working with right now.
And what's the foundation's total operating budget?
So we are just under $30 million.
So it's a significant portion of your budget.
It is. Mm-hmm.
Any other comments or questions?
If I can just conclude by saying and reinforcing, hopefully you've gotten the impression from our CEO, Keitha Mills, that we have qualifications, credibility, experience, and the staff to do this work. And so, as she mentioned, we depend on all of you to help identify those colleges, those organizations who would like to pursue grants but may not have the capacity to do so. So we do this often with many organizations, as you've seen, and so I want you to feel confident going forward and looking for these types of opportunities with the colleges and the organizations that you work with, and then making those introductions to Keitha. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you, Keitha.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to item 3.4, and we'll come back to 3.3. We need to adjust the agenda a little bit, but we'll come back to item 3.3 in a bit. But item 3.4, Assembly Bill 86, Adult Education Consortium Program Implementation Update. Chancellor.
Thank you, President Baca, members of the board. It's a pleasure to turn this item over to Vice Chancellor Ton Quinlivan and her colleague Deb Jones. This is really an exciting opportunity that the K-12 system and we have been about for a little bit more than a year. And so we're making real progress, and I'm going to let Bon and Deb fill you in on that.
Thank you very much, Chancellor Harris. Good afternoon, President Baca, Vice President Baum, and members of the board. It was good to spend a little time with the head table here when we overlapped in Washington, D.C. And before I go on to the report, just wanted to mention last week I was in D.C. again at the request of the State Department. They had asked me to keynote and add the address of the bilateral Mexico-U.S. Forum on Higher Education and Innovation. So the work that we're doing as a system focusing on workforce has really gotten a lot of notice, and I wanted to thank you for your collective sponsorship. And thank you to Member Belansky for doing a call out on the grant item regarding AB 86. So AB 86, Adult Education Consortium Program, as you may recollect from our briefing back in Fresno in the fall, is a 2-year planning grant that the Department of Finance had tasked of us and of the California Department of Education in the hope that we could lay the groundwork for increased reinvestment by the state in the area of adult education in California, and especially to rethink the linkages between our two major systems when it comes to adult learners, and especially in light of the fact that 70% of our current student base has a great deal of remediation that is needed. So as you fully are aware, this is a very complex set of undertakings. In some regions, in some geographies, our colleges are the lead institutions in terms of providing adult education. In other areas, it is our K-12 high school districts and partners that have the lead undertaking. But regardless, we approached this, if you remember, with some key principles. And those principles were how the two systems would work together through this process. And it represented, first is equal representation at the table in terms of the joint planning. The second area was transparency of process. So you could see a lot of documentation and disclosure of the discussions and the issues that are being addressed, or at least in the queue. Inclusiveness. There's never enough communication, but you can tell from the list that was written up in the write-up, the Friday webinars that are held on a regular basis have a mailing list of 7,000 recipients. So we're trying to get out there to hear from all the variety of voices. And then as we stayed very much to the letter of the law and not try to go beyond the scope that was tasked by the letter of the law. So the goal was to set up the consortia of providers whereby 100% of the state would be covered, and to be on progress for this task, at least this portion of the task, by the end of the year. And so what Deborah Jones will report out to you is that the formation of the consortia is on track, and that the reporting that is due to the legislature by the end of March, the interim report that is due, is also on track. And she would like to give you an update on some more of the details, how we got there, but also some of the big chunks of work that are still ahead.
President Baca, members of the board, Chancellor Harris, thank you so much for having me. First of all, thank you for approving today's board item. And the grants that you approved, the planning for those grants will officially commence on Wednesday. So what we've learned thus far, we've collected a lot of paperwork. 55 community college districts and 15 K-12 school districts have up to be fiscal agents of these planning consortia. Of that, there are 300 school districts as well that are members of these consortia. About 500 different partners have been identified in the paperwork, and in the paperwork we are learning about the organizational structure, the roles and responsibilities, the shared decision making. We're learning that some consortia are planning very formal leadership strategies, JPAs or MOUs. Others, it's an informal network that has existed for years. We also recognized in the paperwork that almost all consortia will be actively engaging students in the planning, and every single consortia is engaging faculty, as well as a variety of partners, including workforce investment boards, state services, philanthropic partners. We have some work that we have to do that is now being broken down into what the state level work is doing and what the folks at the local level are working on. They're beginning their planning, like I said, on Wednesday, working on the strategies to bring these systems together, the linkages that will bring these systems together. They're looking at data so that we receive actually consistent data from each of the consortia on which to build and recommend the creation of a funding model. The state level work that will continue on is looking at assessments. We need to ensure that students that leave one system are successful and ready for the next system. We are looking at an accountability system that really talks about and shares successes of the work that we do and those outcomes. We need to prove to the legislature that there is a return on the investment that they're going to make into this new adult education system. And we're learning, and we are working on recommending a funding model for 2015. I'm happy to answer questions.
You know, a very important area, because it's an area that in particular, particularly important because during the period of the recession, we were slowly, not so slowly, eroding away adult education in the state and leaving it maybe in the hands of those that did, but certainly uneven. Just kind of a general perspective on things. You know, we had a certain structure that existed prior to this, and you know, it's very reassuring that there's been attention paid by the governor. Has a special interest in this area and had some ideas about it, and I know that he and the legislature is looking forward to some of the work that's coming out of this. How would you characterize the evolution of this? What makes it what will make it different now than it was, you know, from past years?
So over the past several years, we've seen the erosion fiscally of the K-12 system, especially with flexibility. We've also seen declines in our non-credit system in these 10 areas that were mandated to serve. So we know the importance of the work that we have to do. We also know that there was criticism levied at the systems years ago because we had two very independent systems, and students would leave one system and not be prepared for the next system, or that 70% of our students at the community college system arrive and need remediation of some sort. So to counteract the criticisms, these two systems need to work together. They need to collaborate. We need to have common strategies between them, bridge programs, orientations. It happens at the local level, but sporadically. We have islands of what we call best practices, but not a strategic investment in these practices that we know are successful. So that's the difference. In 2 years, we will have been working as two different systems coming together to create the alignments for our students so that they're successful.
So you would characterize as simply an uptick in terms of communication as a primary vehicle, or is there some kind of a structural change that will occur that will actually ensure this, maybe joint advisory or something structurally that's done to ensure that it begins to happen, continues?
The legislation actually talks about some of those structural changes that will need to take place, and that's bringing faculty together and doing some professional development pieces. Talks about some accountability and assessments. We don't know what 2015 holds. That still remains to be seen. What we do know is we've been given the $25 million to do planning, and we're seeing already the dialogues and the kinds of planning that have changed from just 6 months ago.
Yeah, certainly a higher level of funding is going to help with that. But beyond that, you know, some of the other changes. Members, you have questions? Member Valansky?
Yeah, I'm just curious, and it may not even be a question for you. It may be a question for the chancellor, but we'll see. In this process of the assembly bill, could this mean that community colleges would start offering adult ed classes, and those community colleges never offered them before?
Chancellor? Okay, I'll take that one.
And then I have some follow-ups with that.
You know, right now, we are simply in a planning phase, so I can't answer that with a positive yes or no. But
Okay.
it's very interesting, the conversations that are happening. In some regions, it's a delineation of function. Oh, it's, you offer this CTE program, we don't need to offer that CTE program. You offer this ESL level. In other regions, even now, the planning is taking a more holistic look at the region and the footprint and what needs to be offered, with the hope that there are more investments to be able to provide those services.
So it's a matter of waiting over time just to see how this is. I guess I'm beginning to wonder whether in some instances, in some community colleges, based upon the way they're functioning today, whether it begins to change the mission a bit of that college. And then when it does that, whether those colleges are going to have to go through some kind of a substantive change process to alert accreditation that we're doing something different today because of.
Yeah, I think the answer to both your questions are yes and yes. I think that, in fact, this board is probably at its retreat is going to have a conversation about the mission of California Community Colleges, both as it relates to adult ed and as it relates to the conversations about the community college baccalaureate. And as Deborah pointed out, it's very difficult at this point to know what this is going to look like. I think there are 2 or 3 things that are probably certain. One is that the state is looking at what it considers to be adult ed, and that's likely to change because it includes not only the traditional adult ed that some of our colleges have been doing, but there's a great deal more in adult education at the K-12 level that we are not only have we never done, but we're not suited to do. So I think that what adult ed is under discussion. Secondly, is this currently bifurcated system of delivery, where in some parts of the state it's solely community college, some parts it's solely K-12, and some it is a mixture. But I think one of the things that we've learned fairly quickly is how big the infrastructure for the delivery of adult ed in California is, and the thought of simply flipping a switch and having it all go one way or the other just is not terribly practical. So what I think the administration and the legislature are increasingly realizing is that the best outcome is a much clearer understanding of who's doing what where and a much clearer cooperation between community colleges and K-12, and that's what Deborah and Vaughn and their folks are working on. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
And the only other question is, it says in the materials we got for the meeting that there's a March report this year and then one next year. Can I assume we'd get those reports just to be up to date and
Absolutely.
to be knowledgeable?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Any other questions? Well, thank you both. Appreciate it. We'll now move back to item 3.3, and that is new Board of Governors fee waiver regulations and its impact. Chancellor?
Thank you. Do we have a comment on the previous item?
I'm so sorry.
Thank you for reminding us.
Yes, thank you, Clarissa. There's a speaker card from Lynette Niaga from CTA on this topic.
Sorry about that, Lynette.
That's okay. No problem. I can always speak for myself.
Somehow I think that's true.
Good afternoon, President Baca, Vice President Baum, Chancellor Harris. I wanted to just make a few brief comments on the AB 86 process. I do appreciate the website. I think it's very helpful, and there's lots of feedback there where you can see people have sent in questions and there have been responses on the website. I appreciate that. What I would like to talk to you about is something that I raised at the town hall, and I would just like to make you aware that we who are representing faculty have asked that faculty be included in the process. And we have not seen a lot of inclusion. I did an informal survey at a conference where we had about 30 districts represented from our chapters, and of those, only about 3 knew anything about what was going on with AB 86. In one, at Imperial Valley, the actual organizer and the person in charge is a faculty member, so they've done a good job. But otherwise, it's really hard to find faculty inclusion if you look at the faculty leadership. And I really think that if you are going to get buy-in, that your best bet is to work through faculty leadership and with adult ed faculty. So I'm just mentioning this, and I know that the Vice Chancellor is responsive and that probably it will come in the next stages, but I wanted to make you all aware of this today. And I also wanted to say that we have a policy in CTA on adult education that came out of AB 86. And there are two parts to this policy. The first part is that adult education should be seamless, and I think we're all devoted to that. We need it to be better organized. And that's what AB 86 is working for. But the other one is that people are concerned that their employers will change. So that I just wanted you to be aware that it's a fear out there on the part of faculty in both K-12 and community college that somehow when these consortia go together, that the employer will change and therefore people's salaries and benefits and other contractual aspects of their lives will also change. So just to alert you to those to that one issue. Thank you very much.
Duly noted. Thank you for the reminder.
Thank you very much.
We'll move on to item, again, 3.3, new Board of Governors fee waiver regulations impact. Chancellor.
Thank you, President Baca, members of the board. You will recall at your last meeting, the board took action to establish academic standards for Board of Governor fee waivers. And at that time, following the action by the board, there was a continued discussion of the impact on certain groups of students. And you asked that staff take a look at that and report back, and that is the purpose of this item. And it's a pleasure to introduce Vice Chancellor Michalowski, who has been working for months on this issue, and she and her colleagues have prepared a report. And Linda, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chancellor Harris, President Baca, members of the board. We conducted a cohort analysis in order to try to simulate the numbers of students who might be affected by the new requirements related to the Board of Governors enrollment fee waiver. We took a cohort of students who entered the system in fall of 2011, and we traced their enrollment each subsequent term after that to determine how many would have two consecutive terms of failing to meet academic and or progress requirements. And you know, I should point out that in doing this analysis, while the numbers that we identified as potentially affected are, I would say, modest, they probably overestimate the actual impact, because the direction that we have taken on the Board of Governors fee waivers is just one part of your Student Success Initiative. And the numbers that we are looking at now did not have the benefit of any of the increased emphasis on services to students, nor did they have the benefit of students being aware of the expectations that two consecutive terms on probation has potential consequences. And furthermore, it doesn't take into consideration the impact of the appeal process, which we expect will mitigate the numbers even further. So if given all of those limitations, we found that of the original cohort from fall 2011, 31,342 students might have been told that they were going to lose their BOG fee waiver because of two consecutive terms on probation. That is 3.9% of the total BOG fee waiver recipients. And if you look at the all credit students enrolled, it's 2.2%. So like I said, the numbers are modest. We, of course, do not want a single student to lose their BOG fee waiver. And that is why it is so important that you have chosen to take a phased approach to implementation of the various components of the Student Success Initiative. And while services are going into effect immediately, the sanctions based on academic and progress probation will not go into effect until the fall of 2016. So of the 31,000 students who are affected, we found that 4.7% were Latino and 4.4% were African American. So it is a slightly higher risk than for all students at and for Caucasian students it's 2.3%. There's a slightly higher impact of 4.1% on male students versus 3.8% for females. And then we looked specifically at the students served by the categorical programs that were identified who receive enrollment priority and who would be subject to these provisions. So among CalWORks students, the percent who might lose the fee waiver is 4.7%. For students served by the Disabled Students Programs and Services, it is 6%, and among EOPS students, it's 4.8%. So those groups are slightly more affected than some other students. However, in all cases, like I said, we believe the numbers are modest, and we expect that these are identified populations that the colleges will work with to avoid this impact. When you adopted regulations to implement the Student Success and Support Program, you may recall that there's a provision in those regulations that requires colleges to do follow-up services with students who are on academic or progress probation, exactly so that they do not come into a second term and risk losing their enrollment priority or their BOG fee waiver. Those are the numbers, and as the colleges implement the enrollment priorities this coming fall, student expectations will adjust, I believe, to a great extent to understand that the opportunity that they are being provided to attend community college is one that they need to take seriously, because I think that this is a significant cultural change in the state, and we've never really given anyone that message before, that there are expectations and that we do want them to succeed in achieving a goal. And I think that colleges are actively working now to ensure that they have the support systems in place to be able to support those students to be successful.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor. Before I take board comments, I'd like to have public
we have a number of public
speakers
who wish to address the board.
Vice President Baum.
I'm going to list two names at a time since there are a number of cards here. Joan Thompson, followed by Fabio Gonzalez.
Good afternoon. I'm Joan Thompson from Region 10. I'm the EOPS and CalWORks coordinator down there. And I have a letter, Dear Board of Governors. This letter is combined affirmation from Region 10 leadership in the area of EOPS, CARE, CalWORks, DSPS, and veterans, and programs for former foster youth. We are concerned as a region regarding the changes being made to the BOG-W. Specifically, we are requesting that the exemption provided to former foster youth be provided to all students in EOPS, CARE, DSPS, CalWORks, and students who are veterans. All of us who lead these programs have experience and expertise in working with student populations that are underrepresented. Our student constituents face substantial challenges and barriers that must be taken into consideration if they too are going to realize their educational objectives. There are too many commonalities among the aforementioned student populations. Not one of them should be excluded from the exemption. The Student Success Initiative was designed to mitigate barriers for students and assist them in meeting their academic goals. The majority of our special population students need reasonable time to compensate for the short-term effects of their disadvantaged status on educational performance. For example, research has demonstrated that EOPS students take 3 semesters to adjust to college due to their unfamiliarity with college culture, lack of family knowledge of college experience, or expectation and economic instability. Their education success may not be realized under the limitations of the BOG W eligibility without an exemption. There's no way the majority of these students could attend college without the assistance of the BOG. We strongly urge you to amend Section 58621, Subchapter 7 of Chapter 9 of Division 6, Title 5 of the California Code Regulations Loss of Eligibility 2 to include EOPS, CalWORKs, DSPS, and veterans. And it's signed by the Regional Coordinator for Foster Youth, Wendy Craig, myself as the Regional Rep from EOPS, Cheryl Ashley, who's the Regional Coordinator for CalWORKs, Connie Williams, who's with the DSPS people, and Tina Barlow with the Veterans Organizations.
Yeah, Fabio Gonzalez, and followed by Maria Roman.
Thank you. President Baca, Vice President Baum, Chancellor, Honorable Board. My name is Fabio Gonzalez, and I'm the Vice President of the California Community College EOPS Association. I was really happy to see the speakers early today, the 3 leaders of the highest higher education system. And I was saying to myself, what is wrong with this picture? Because our chancellor is in a position where actually our community college system, our system is the only one that represents what California is today and what California is going to be 20 years from today. But how do we do that? How do we change for the other systems to look like our community college system? And the only way we can do that is by focusing on persistence and retention, and making sure that our students are transferring and graduating. This little variable that we're focusing on, that we want our students to be added in EOP&S, to be given that opportunity just like the foster youth, to continue receiving the VOG waiver, it is a variable that impacts our students deeply. Because our students, as you already know, are first-generation students. The chancellor from the CSU, Chancellor White, mentioned it about minority students persisting in his system. And they're trying to find variables and try to find approaches on how to support that population. We have it in the community college. It's called EOPS. And we're able to get those students of color through the system, make sure they get a certificate, make sure they transfer. This right here, you already saw the percentages, are going to impact our students. The beautiful thing about EOPS is that we have a system in place. We work with those students that fail. Many students are not gonna do well in the first, second semester, or even third semester. So having EOP&S that can work with them, that can give them the support, and for them to receive the fee waiver, it allows them the opportunity to continue with their education. So this is, my friends, this is just a variable that we all know we need to continue supporting to our students. It makes sense to add EOP&S. It makes sense to add DSPS. It makes sense to add the veteran students because they will be impacted by this. Thank you.
So, Maria Roman, followed by Will Bruce.
Yes, thank you for having me again. I spoke with you in January hearing my story, and I hear the story all the time about migrant students coming in from other countries seeking a better life here, which I have myself. I am here to represent the Region 5 colleges for the EOPS. It's Bakersfield, College of Sequoias, Columbia, Fresno City, Merced, Modesto, Porterville, Reedley, San Joaquin, Delta, West Hills, Kalinga, and West Hills, Lemoore. You know, we are all asking to please support adding these other category programs into the exemption like foster youth. It only makes sense. If you hear the numbers, even they're not that big of a numbers. It's just that, we have the support system. If you look at the numbers for the programs that Linda mentioned, even one student can be a success, just like I was. It took me several semesters to get up to speed in math, English, and the writing, reading, and math that I, started off. And community college, as you know, was supposed to be free. It was not supposed to cost anything for the students to gain the higher education. And then and I know that it's still more affordable than other, higher ed. But, at the time where the fee waiver did come into place, Linda came to Porterville College. She trained me and the financial aid staff about the fee waiver. And I said, this is the perfect answer. Because, if I would have been suspended, my father would have to, filled up 2 bins of oranges just to pay for 1 unit, the $46 that I would have to pay when I would be suspended. So, don't forget about the farm workers who, put food on our table, because that's where my father was. And so, there are many students like myself out there. Now that I am a counselor, I hear the same stories that students are going through what I did. And so it does take longer than many other students. So these numbers that it was just mentioned, it's not that very many students. So if you can please add the exemption to those groups, it would be great. As I was looking into your agenda, for some reason I noticed that veterans were not excluded, for the minutes. And I wasn't sure if that was just what I am not reading or not, but on page 3, it says EOP, at the end of it, it says EOPS, DSPS, EOPS, CalWorks, and veterans. Don't forget I'm sorry, it is in the back, sorry. It was my mistake. So, including all those is very important, so thank you very much.
Will Bruce, followed by Marcus King.
Thank you. My name is Will Bruce, EOPS Association President. President Baca, Vice President Baum, Chancellor Harris, thank you for letting me speak. And first of all, I'd like to thank the board last month, or the other board meeting, where you acknowledged the issue and you tried to amend the regulations, and we're hoping that you continue to move forward with the amendment. When we talk about minimal casualties with the Board of Governors fee waiver, it's to me, when I was hearing those numbers last month, it was up to 42,000 at that time, and my heart just sank, and I just couldn't believe that was minimal to people. Over 10 years' time, that's over 400,000 students, and so to me, one person is too many. I honestly think it's an access issue. People said at that meeting that our students have other resources that they can tap into, but without the Board of Governors fee waiver, they don't get anything. They wouldn't get financial aid. They wouldn't get EOPS. They wouldn't get any of those services anymore. So they don't have anything to glean from. If someone had money, they could continue to pay the fee and become a community college student. Without the Board of Governors fee waiver, many of these students would be preyed upon by the private colleges. They would end up getting loans from these colleges, $50,000, and guess what? They probably do it for a degree, an AA degree. And if you add the $30,000 or 30,000 students and about a $50,000 degree that those private colleges would prey upon, that's $1.5 billion. So if you follow the money, you kind of see where these unintended consequences would head these students toward that door. We need to keep the doors open at the community colleges. EOPS, like Fabio said, we already have processes in place. We have probationary workshops. So to make them go through an appeal, it would just, they wouldn't get the classes because appeals sometimes take too long at many campuses. They wouldn't get the classes they were into. So they would have to probably sit out a semester because, they just couldn't do it. I urge you to continue to move forward with the amending, making all 4 groups. Like I said, someone that would get pushed out is not minimal to me, and I hope you listen to some of the other minimal students. Thank you.
Okay. Marcus King, and followed by Ketmani Kanan Oeho.
Thank you. I'm one of those minimal students, actually. I mean, not because I'm short or anything, because I'm one of these guys that would be affected by this. I thought about how would that have changed my journey through higher education. When I was a kid, after my mom died, I had to move to Virginia. The price per unit, this is back in the 90s, was over $253 a unit, something like that. I couldn't do that. I was preyed upon by a private institution. I went, didn't even get a degree. It was just a trade school. Graduated, and later on down the road, once I became a parent, moved back to California, I decided I wanted something that meant something. I went to a community college. I was able to go by way of the BOG fee waiver. I didn't get financial aid. I went into default with my student loans. I had to work that out, and eventually I got financial aid again. I'm one of the students to be affected in many different ways. I was an EOPS student. I was also a DSPS student. I graduated, transferred to UC Davis, finished my degree there, my 2 BA degrees, and currently I'm applying to law school. This would have not been possible. I actually am one of those students that went a little over 2 semesters with lackluster performance, and I would not be here today. I thought, what would I be doing right now if this were the case when I attended school? I'd be at home, kick back with my daughter. We'd be having fun right now, watching TV. I'd be helping her with her homework. But she would eventually ask me, why didn't you finish college? With me harping college all the time in her ear. And all I'd be able to say was, Daddy messed up. I don't like this. I don't like that outcome. So, and I imagine that I'm one of many, one of thousands who would have a similar story if that were the case.
Thank you. Ketmani, followed by Nathan Wilson.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak in front of you today. I am here representing Region 9 of the EOPS Association, comprising of 11 community colleges that includes Barstow, Chaffee, Crafton Hills, Cabo Mountain, the College of the Desert, Moreno Valley, Norco, Riverside, San Bernardino, and Victor Valley. I too am also, I have similar background, similar to the EOPS students. I participated in equity programs as a first-generation, low-income, and academically underprepared student. It was in the equity program that I found and received counseling, career guidance, and the tools necessary for me to succeed as a student. So as a result, I am the first in my family to receive my doctorate in education from Cal State Fullerton. I know many of the students in my region will be negatively impacted by this effort if you do not support the effort that will put EOPS, DSPS veterans into the exempt categories similar to the foster youth. So I respectfully request your support to put these categories go together so that everybody can be on the same playing field. Thank you.
Thank you. Nathan Wilson, followed by Nick Warren.
Hello, my name is Nathan Wilson, and I'm currently a first-generation college student. My path through education has been a blessing, if anything. I've received the BOG waiver, and it allowed me to take classes at a community college as compared to trying to go to a private institution or even under the UCs or Cal States, which would have been exuberantly expensive. After graduating from high school, I saw some of my friends who were still able to get the BOG waiver. However, they still were in a point of financial need. They still needed to immediately have a job and immediately have a source of income. With the BOG waiver, they were just barely skimming by. And problems with at home, having to raise kids, having to help their moms, their cousins, aunts, uncles, everything, having to basically, at 19, 20 years old, already have to be the head of a household. Those people with the BOG waiver were barely getting by. They're barely already going through the system. If we were to take away the BOG waiver, that already seeing so many of my friends fall, people that I've grown up with since middle school, already seeing so many of them fall because they can't afford it. it's terrible. And to see more of them fall because of the fact that the bog waiver is going to be taken away because of the fact that they have to own up, because they had to grow up way faster than anybody else had, it would be terrible. So that's why I would humbly request that you continue funding the bog waiver in spite of the fact that people have had 2 semesters off from academic probation. Thank you.
Thank you. Nick Warren, followed by Paula Munoz.
Good afternoon. I'm the student trustee for Mount San Jacinto College. I'm also the president of CAST, and I'm speaking on behalf of the California Community College Association of Student Trustees. I am an EOPS student. When I decided to become a returning student, I had no confidence that I had the ability to do anything, and EOPS gave me that confidence. I'm currently on probation. So if this program were in effect right now, this is my 2nd semester being on probation due to circumstances completely beyond my control. You can't control certain things in life. We're in these programs because we're already struggling. We need these programs to help us. Now, my story's not unique. I've been on probation 2 semesters in a row. The fact of the matter is, I'm an all-California academic team student. I'm a Jack Kent Cook finalist, but I've been on probation 2 semesters in a row, and I'm an EOPS student. The reason that I'm got these amazing things that are happening for me and I'm transferring at the end of this semester is because of EOPS. Had I lost the bog waiver, I wouldn't have any of these things because I wouldn't be able to afford to be in school. We need to have the bog waiver available to EOPS, CalWORKS, DSPS. We need the exemption because we're not going to succeed without it. We're in the programs because we're already struggling. We've already got hardships that we're facing. If you create more hardships, then you're going to lose a lot of students that desperately need the education that we're already getting. Thank you.
Paula Munoz, followed by Georgina Guy.
Good afternoon, Board of Governors. I am Paula Munoz. I'm an EOPS coordinator at Ventura College, and I'm representing Region 6, which includes Ventura, Oxnard, Moore Park, Santa Barbara, Antelope, Ellen, Hancock, Taft, and Cuesta. I'm not sure if you remember who exactly the EOPS student is, who it is we are supposed to serve, but basically we are to serve the most educationally disadvantaged and the poor. That's who we're serving. And as far poor means they're bog eligible. So if they're bog eligible, they've got that side of the house covered in terms of trying to be eligible for our program. But they also have to be educational disadvantaged. That means that they were not high school graduates, graduated with a grade point average below a 2.50. They were assessed coming to college at a remedial English or math level. They were perhaps previously enrolled in high school, college, or remedial courses, and then there's other ones like first-generation college student, foster youth, first language, not English. Now, they're already coming to us with these educational disadvantages, and part of our purpose is to recruit. So our mission is to recruit. So we don't just sit in our offices and wait till the students come to us. We are to go out and to recruit. We are to recruit these disadvantaged students. So these are students that probably don't even think they can come to college. That is something that's just not part of their world culture. So our job is to go out and to recruit these students and to say, you can come to the college, we will help you. We have financial aid, we have bog waivers, and EOPS is going to help you. We will provide early registration, we'll provide extreme counseling, we'll give you grants, we'll give you tutoring, we'll give you a lot of support services to help get you through. So we have a low male Latino enrollment in our community college system and also in EOPS. So some of these students, especially this male Latino student, it's not part of their worldview to come to college either. So they are probably the hardest ones to recruit. And once we recruit them, they're probably the hardest ones to keep in. They come from very different backgrounds. A lot of them are maybe gang leaders, maybe they've had drug problems, they're offenders, maybe they're young fathers, and maybe they're just not into the educational system. So it takes a lot of work on our part to keep them, and the 2 semesters for many of them they're going to be on probation, and I see that they will be losing the BOG waiver. So I ask that we urge you to please include EOPS in the BOG fee waiver exemption. These students need a lot of help, and we're going to lose them if we do not allow these EOPS students to also be exempted in the BOG fee waiver. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last card is from Georgina Guy.
Thank you, members of the board. I am here to support the exception of EOPS, Care CalWorks, and VETS under this new governor's fee waiver regulation. And let me tell you a brief story. I am an immigrant. I came from Mexico. I am the first one who graduated from high school. I went to community college. I now have 3 master's degrees under my belt. I have a doctorate in clinical psychology. I am a clinical psychologist licensed by the state of California. Went back to school. I am also a neuropsychologist. Now, if this rule applied 25 years ago, I would not be here in front of you. And I would be in the 4.7%. So I urge you to please include those groups in the exemption group. Thank you.
Members, any questions? Vice President Baum?
I just had one question that one of the speakers raised, and somebody had raised it to me also in the time since we took action. They say if you lose your eligibility for BOG fee waiver, it also impacts other types of financial aid, perhaps OSHR scholarships or others. I wasn't aware of that. I know other scholarships like Cal Grants also have a minimum requirement, as do, I believe, Pell Grants and others. Are there other sources of financial aid that are contingent upon the awarding of a BOG fee waiver?
Most financial aid is controlled by the federal standards of satisfactory academic progress. Cal Grant, for example, relies upon the federal standards that apply to Pell Grant or work study or guaranteed student loans. And those standards are considerably more strict and explicit than the approach that we have taken with the BOG fee waiver and enrollment priorities. They and they have changed many times over the years, and they keep getting stricter and more complicated. But typically, the financial aid offices now have to monitor not only how many units a student has taken and how they've performed in those units, but they have to monitor how each semester's units are contributing towards progress, towards their specific degree objective over a limited period of time. So the short answer is they're more strict. Now, the OSHR scholarship requires students to be BOG eligible, and I'm going to turn and get a nod from my staff for the. Yes, they're dependent on BOG. Yes. So if they lost their BOG, they'd lose their OSHR scholarship. So if a student lost their BOG fee waiver eligibility, they would lose their OSHR scholarship as well.
And does the federal guidelines exempt any specific classes of students?
No. There are no exemptions under the federal guidelines.
Okay. That's all.
Member Belansky?
There's a line in here that, in the paperwork that we got ahead of time, that if you could remind me what it means, that would be helpful. It's at the bottom of like estimates likely overstate impact. Mm-hmm. And it says it's important to note, and then it says the specific appeal considerations afforded to CalWorks, DSPS, EOPS, and veteran students. What are those? Remind us of what those appeal considerations are, or when you can do that.
Well, any student who is advised that they are subject to loss of their BOG fee waiver based on 2 terms on probation has the right to an appeal process. Districts are required to adopt those policies and inform students of them. And you specifically added provisions that say for any student who is a participant in EOPS, DSPS, CalWorks, or is a veteran, that those circumstances are to be taken into consideration in the appeal process. So, I mean, I feel strongly that a college has the ability to allow virtually any student in those categories to continue to receive the BOG. However, it's an opportunity to focus on that student, to let that student know that the institution is watching their behavior and is also prepared to assist in getting them, towards their educational goal. So I look at it as an opportunity.
And so locally, we can set up conditions for these categories of students, probably not the best terminology to use, for appeal. Now, let me ask another question with regard to that because of just other things I go through. Will that get audited, these colleges that set up, in a very well thought out way, an appeals process? Will that get audited in any way?
I assume that in future years we will look into it, yes, because we, through your annual district audit process, we rotate among the categorical programs, and we will certainly, once this is in place, which won't be until after the fall of 2016, we will certainly want to look at how districts are implementing it. And we'll also look at it from the perspective of technical assistance, not just from an audit perspective, but we will look at districts that are having success in implementing these provisions in a way that improves student success, and we will find ways to share that experience with other colleges.
But just to finalize it, given current experiences that colleges are having, and that they could go back and look in terms of the students they've worked with, they could in fact set up this appeals process.
Yes, they could.
Members?
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Vice Chancellor Michalowski, for your presentation, and thank you for all the members of the public who came up and testified today. You mentioned, Vice Chancellor, that the attempts to help the people in these categories would actually precede the time when the BOG fee waiver this provision would take effect in 2016. Just out of curiosity, have you heard preliminarily, what individual colleges are doing in terms of, the types of services, added services that they may be providing in anticipation of this provision coming online in 2016?
Mm-hmm. By next fall, all colleges will be required to provide orientation, assessment, and support in education planning for all incoming, all first-time students. So right now, colleges are actively figuring out how to do that. And they are implementing processes to make sure that new students have a touch, so that they are advised and they're able to develop at least a preliminary education plan in order to gain priority enrollment. And we're also working on statewide technology projects that will help with education planning, with common assessment, to support those efforts on the part of colleges. I think that the follow-up piece has historically been the most difficult for colleges to do on a systematic basis, but now we have targeted at-risk students for those follow-up services, and your regulations require colleges to figure out how to reach those students and provide support services for them.
I want to follow up on Member Azumi's question. I would remind the board that in January of 12, when you approved the 22 recommendations, that I and others who served on the task force felt strongly that they had to be approved as a body of work, and this is a perfect example of that. To strengthen the academic requirements for the Board of Governor fee waivers without the kind of support for the interventions that Linda has just described would have meant that the very thing people worry about would have happened. And I think when you look at the $50 million the legislature and governor put into student success last year, and the recommendation at least this year for an additional $200 million, and the delay of implementation of this until 2016, to implement this without the kind of support mechanisms and, frankly, the ability to have exceptions at the local level for students that truly are academically struggling to meet these standards would have been a hollow promise. And so I just remind the board that you took the action to approve all of these as a body of work rather than to implement some of them and not others.
Vice President Vaughn?
I assume we're going to continue to track the impacts of this policy on different groups as we monitor our
Absolutely, we will. I think it'll be very important to see who's being impacted, and we'll also be monitoring the student success scorecard to see if collectively all of the actions that you've taken result in better rates of success for all students, because we will be looking at that by student demographic groups and not just the student body as a whole.
If we do begin to track disproportionate impacts on a certain class of student that's out of line with other groups, what types of remedies would be available to us to explore?
Well, I would be the first to argue that that we would need to look at the policies that we've adopted to try to identify where that impact is coming from. I mean, you've made a commitment to implementing the Student Success Initiative and being mindful of achievement gaps and student equity. And so I think we as a system have a responsibility to follow through on that. We're helping the colleges to develop tools to look locally at which students are succeeding and which students are not. So we're holding the colleges and districts accountable, and we will also need to hold ourselves accountable as a system and be prepared to change course if things aren't working.
Maybe just one last question, and I think you've already responded to this for the most part. How does this compare with any eligibility criteria that we apply on any other set of programs or financial aid?
Well, in the world of financial aid, I mean, President Baca, I was here in the beginning and helped to create this program, and it's always been unique in that it didn't have academic progress requirements that exceed, what is required for a student to remain enrolled. So if you're asking for comparison, I mean, just by...
Not for the other one, but for current situation. The current situation, not a historical one.
Uh-huh. So we... The requirements for all other programs have become more strict over the years, and so, in a sense, we're bringing the BOC fee waiver into line in the sense that there will be academic requirements.
Okay. Any other comments? Thank you both, and thank you for all the public comments. Appreciate it. Thank you. We'll move on to... let's take a little short break. We've had a request for a little short break, and then we'll reconvene in about 5 minutes or so, 10 minutes maybe.